I think one of the greatest things I did was flounder. Try a bunch of things. If it means something to you, it's going to mean something to others.
That's Meg Hood. She is the cozy content creator behind Meg's Tea Room. With over 500,000 followers, Meg has built a community around slow storytelling, tenderness, and the courage to question everything. In this conversation, you're going to hear her story of deconstruction and how she used her experience to build a community around belonging.
It gets so loud in the social media space about how fast and how quick, and we only have so much time. The goal is to catch attention instead of connecting. The only way you're really going to connect is that slowing down.
This is Meg Hood. Meg, let's pretend we are sitting on an airplane.
Okay.
And there's a stranger who's sitting next to you, and they look over and kindly ask, "What do you do for a living?" How do you choose to respond to that?
That's a great question. I would say I am a cozy content creator, and I have a publishing imprint. So I make content on the internet in a fantasy tea room atmosphere that invites you in and encourages you to take a breath, take a pause. It's not for everybody, but it's definitely been a gift to me. I love doing it.
How do people respond when you say a cozy content creator?
I get so many questions right away. People want clarity on what that means. And it is hard to explain, isn't it? You know, when you see the content that I do, because there's a sense also of I'm learning to own it more, because at the beginning there was a sense of not shame, but kind of embarrassment, I guess, in a sense, that I'm tapping into this inner child piece of my heart and I'm dressing up in a corset, you know, and and I look like a medieval tavern wench when I'm serving tea online. Oh, thank you.
At least you're gorgeous.
Thank you. Oh, that's so nice. That's very nice. But yeah, so to explain that to a professional, for example, or if I'm in professional atmospheres, it can be really intimidating, but I've learned more and more now to just say, you know, this is what I do.
Yeah.
It feels a little silly sometimes, but I'm finding that it's striking a chord and connecting. And I'm really proud of it now. Really proud of it.
Good for you. You should be.
Yeah,
You should be. The engagement you have, the reach, the depth, it's so cool. It's really cool what content creation can do.
Truly.
How long have you been in this space? And I think you started, tell me if I'm wrong, you started off with, was it cocktails?
I did, yes.
Yeah.
So I've always been kind of serving, in a sense, on my audience, but I started in, 2021. I saw a bunch of different people coming online and talking books, and I love to read. I'm a lifelong reader, and I had been dipping my toes more into fantasy, and that was a newer genre for me at the time. And so I started trying to find who I was online and who what I wanted to bring to the table. And I hadn't seen anyone, at least in my little section of the internet. I'm sure it existed, but I hadn't seen anyone making, drinks or food that was specific for, a certain title. And so I decided to start making, cocktails for books that I was reading or that people were loving. And that's where it began. And then it very, very quickly evolved into what it is today. Yeah.
Why the cozy piece? What's important about that to you?
Well, it started, when I was reading all these books and making cocktails, there was one book that I kept getting the ads for, and it was called Legends and Lattes, and it's called a cozy fantasy. It's one of the first books to call itself a cozy fantasy. And I made a video kind of being silly saying, I'm going to read this book. This looks ridiculous. I just got to know, because the cover looked so funny to me. And I thought it was going to be kind of a jokey cocktail to make and a jokey review. And come to find out, it was home for me. The minute I read it, I ended it and went, oh my goodness, this is the kind of book I've been craving, because the cozy was in, the found family element, feeling seen in a story, feeling comforted. It was a little bit slower paced. The stakes were very low, so you weren't really deeply activated in a negative way. And I thought that at the time, it felt like magic. We were just coming out of COVID. Everyone was searching for, something to land, soft place to land. And that's what it offered me. And then I started devolving my content into more of the cozy space, because it felt like home the minute I found it.
Mm-hmm.
And it felt like something that we all kind of collectively needed. Was softer.
Still do.
Yeah, I know.
I asked my husband last night, I told you before, he's found you originally and is a big fan of your content. And I said, hey, I'm interviewing Meg tomorrow. What's something you want to know about her? And I'm reading off literally what he said. He said, she genuinely wants people to heal. And I'm curious where that comes from.
Ooh,
and I thought that was a beautiful question.
Oh my God, that is one of the kindest things that's ever been said about my content. Tell them thank you, please.
Oh, well.
Wow. I've never heard that about what I do. I think I'd have to take that in. But my immediate reaction to that is, well, yeah, because I've had to walk through that. Yeah. And I know what healing feels like isolated. And I know what healing feels like in connection and community. And sometimes you don't have access necessarily to that community yet if you are in a healing season, because, for example, if you're leaving a community that, like the church, which is something that I walked through, you do feel that isolation. You feel like you're having to walk through all that alone. So if I can offer someone even just 1 minute of feeling seen and understood in the healing process, then I know that's something I needed desperately and found online, to be frank. And so to me, that feels like purpose. Yeah.
Amen, sis. Let's go there. Let's buckle in. I'm ready. You said the word deconstruction. Were you involved in ministry? What was your?
I was a worship leader. Yeah, I was a worship leader for years.
Were you really?
Mm-hmm. I was professionally, and I did a lot of youth ministry stuff, just as a volunteer, of course, at church. But I did I was a singer, and I loved it. I loved it. But I also was in church atmospheres, and I grew up very conservative Christian in a very fundamentalist environment. And so the greatest thing that could have happened to me was around 15, I found musical theater and started community theater. And because of that, I got access to all different kinds of people and personalities and beliefs. And I'm so grateful for that experience, because it opened a door for me where I was okay to ask questions. It felt way more safe to me than church even did, because everyone was so open, and everyone was just so lovely and welcoming to all different types of walks of life in that kind of community.
Did you stay leading worship into adulthood, or when did that?
I did.
Yeah,
I did. Yeah. I think that age 15 community theater piece was the kind of pinprick in my brain that started opening up slowly as we went. And I was always wanting to ask questions, and I was always looking for answers that were bigger than the church was willing to offer at the time. And so I kept putting myself in these positions, of leadership within the church, but it never again felt, and I'm constantly seeking home, I guess that's just my theme word. But I never felt at home on that stage. I always felt like there was a falseness to what I was offering the world, which is ironic now when you look at, I'm created a character online, but that feels more authentic to me than standing on a stage and singing about, a good father ever did. Not to say that that's a negative thing to believe that, but you know what I mean? Yeah. And in the church, I still have faith. I just am not, because of my experience with the church and how connected I was, and I was in it,
Same.
Yeah.
I know.
I had to kind of separate myself in order to maintain the faith that I really do want,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you nailed it earlier about the community piece. I was just talking to someone the other day about when you choose to step outside of a system, it's not just about, there's pain of like, and this is just my experience.
Yeah.
It felt different, but there was just like pain of this sense of security was gone, of like what you've always cognitively believed in your heart. But then you also deal with the pain of losing a place in a community with literally family.
Yep.
And so it feels so alone when you step out of it. And I'm hearing you say, tell me if I'm off, that like cultivating belonging in community online, like even though you're not talking about God or church or anything like that, it's kind of like recreating that church feeling for you again.
Yeah. I call it ministry in a sense. And I don't mean it in a evangelical type of sense, but in a like, what was ministry meant to be? What was the heart behind it originally, and it was to make people feel seen and supported in whatever way they need. And this is the type of ministry that I can offer right now. And I don't know where it'll lead, in the future, what doors this will open up, as we continue on life. But right now it feels very poignant. As funny as, again, I'm dressing up in a costume and serving tea online. It's not deep, but it feels deep to me,
Yeah. What was, if you don't mind me, if anything that's too personal, just be like, yo, Heather, I don't even know you.
No, you're good.
Oh, but what was like the breaking point for you to leave and kind of go out of ministry altogether?
Is it okay to say 2016? Is that the election?
A lot of responses.
Okay. Yeah, I would say I was already on that trajectory. In 2015, I had some personal trauma that, when that was exposed, the reactions within my Christian friends, that put a line in the sand for me a little bit. And then 2016 came right on top of that. We had an election. I watched the deification of yeah.
Girl, you don't have to tiptoe here.
Okay.
My Instagram, if you look at my Instagram, like literally straight up yesterday, I was talking about this, so you're good.
Okay, good. Okay. We're safe. No, I watched the deification of this man, this president, that and I watched the tenets and pillars that were handed to me of Christianity and what it meant to do it and be it and perform it almost. I watched those just be tossed aside in the name of power. And I couldn't align myself with that type of religion or that type of faith anymore. I didn't, in my gut, in my soul, it didn't feel good. It didn't feel right. It felt polar opposite to my character and integrity. And I had to walk away. I had to. So I hate that that's what did it. It was kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back, because I think it was building.
Sure.
I remember leaving a church to move here to Nashville. I was in DC for a while doing with a church that I really loved the people. It was such a beautiful, diverse, lovely church. But I remember when I decided to leave and come to Nashville, one of the things they said when they sat me down was that the protection of the church and basically God's umbrella resided in the church. And when I stepped outside of that, I was going to lose, some form of protection over my life.
Yeah.
And I remember leaving that meeting, and that was a direct reflection of my upbringing and what I was also told. and it all came down to this obedience piece, that if you stepped outside of that obedience and that loyalty, you were gonna be threatened almost with your life.
Yeah.
And that was, again, just launching points like that were just happening over and over with my, relationship with the church. So I think when 2016 happened, it was like, there, it gives me an excuse. I'm out. If that makes sense.
Yeah. What did you kind of turn to? And I've been really fascinated with the term like reconstruct, like trying to figure out.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
I still am just deeply, what's the word? I guess empathic would be the word, but like sensitive to, I love the spirit realm, and I grew up evangelical Christian where it was like the Holy Spirit and prophecy and all that stuff. And kind of leaving that, I still was, always been a very spiritual being, but trying to find a place for how to direct connection to God and rebuild something that feels in alignment with your values and integrity and so forth, but also not get like going into the dogma of it all. It's been so wild, and I don't know if the journey will ever really end figuring that out. But I'm curious with you, what did you turn to? Like, how have you kind of reconnected? Because you haven't said it, but you're connected to God. Like, I can feel that on you, right?
Yeah.
So what was the next chapter after those metaphorical church doors closed?
Yeah, I went hard into theology. Hard. Yes, I have a huge shelf right there outside in my hallway that is just packed thick with every type of theology book you could find all over the board. I was just very I felt free in a way to seek answers on my own, and I got voracious and almost hyperfixated on just figuring out what I believe and how I believe it and why things were written this way and why we believe what we believe and why I was taught what I was taught. And that led to burnout pretty quickly after, a year or so of doing that. And I was like, okay, now I've got it all in there, and now I need to just take a break and step back. So that was what I first reached for. And I think in the step back and going, okay, take a breath. I found a community of women that met once a month, that were all going through a deconstruction journey. And I think that was probably one of the more positive things that helped me when it came to leaning on something, was at least once a month, I had a space to go to ask questions, to talk, to hear. Everyone was at a different level where they were at in their faith. And so that was really enriching along the process. So I think community really, really helped. And now what I'm leaning into, I think it's just the same thing. It's just community, and also Jesus. I haven't let go of Jesus. I just can't. And I believe a lot of the good that he believed in. And I feel like there's some great example there, and a lot of tenderness. And so I think that's kind of what I'm trying to hold on to the most with my faith, and what I fight for the most is something soft, something tender, that feels very intimate and personal. It doesn't have to be loud and big and raging like a storm. It's just a whisper. And that's what I need it to be right now. If that makes sense.
Totally.
Yeah.
How do you keep your heart tender though? Because you know what I mean?
That's a really good question. And I don't always. Gosh. I wish I had an answer for this. I need to think about it, because I don't fully know. I think therapy. I think I don't know if it's something that's ingrained in certain people and not. And like everyone has a different personality, and it's easier for me for some reason, and I don't know why, maybe it is that, I don't know why, it's easier for me to look at the world and go, but there is hope, but there is good. And I don't know if that's the stubborn part of me that's like the rebellious Jezebel spirit piece that is like always trying, right? Always trying to contrast, but I wish I knew how to keep the tenderness. I wish I had a better answer for that, Heather. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, I ask these questions because I don't have the answer.
I was gonna say, do you have an answer to that? What would
No,
be?
man. I think that's on top of my mind all the time, though. My bent is more kind of social justice, right and wrong, and I just freaking thrived in church because I'm like, yeah, rules, like let's go.
Yeah.
I was a different person back then, and I've learned that came from a lot of trauma and a lot of trying to protect myself, because if I could be tough on the outside and black and white, then I didn't have to be vulnerable. And I think if I opened up that vulnerability, then it was like a floodgate that would never stop, because there was so much pain there. And now that those walls are gone, and I don't want them to be back, the past several years, it's like I cry all the time, and it's like a release. And, some people, I was just talking to Braun about this yesterday, people are like, oh, I can feel like you need to heal from things and all that. And there's part of me that doesn't want to fully heal.
Yeah.
Because I want to stay tender, and I want to stay a little bit broken for people. And I want to be sensitive to the shit show that's going on and how it affects people. And so I know that sounds weird, but like, I want to stay a little, I don't want to say broken. I want to stay a little unhealed and a little
raw.
And I want to cry, and I want my heart to be broken, and I don't want to let that go, because I think after you don't see people anymore, and I've been doing a lot more. I've been trying to focus on a lot more quiet time. My tendency is to run to fill in quietness, and it's like, okay, Heather, are you okay with like not having a podcast going?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's hard.
So I don't know. I don't know the answer, but I was just curious with you.
I don't think that tenderness, and one thing I want to say too is like, I don't want to mix like a tender spirit with a meekness, because that was something that was, again, put on women in the church. I think that anger can be a kindness in a lot of ways. If you are angry about the world, that makes so much sense to me. And I don't think that tenderness and angerness or anger or just emotion that is like heightened for this world, I don't think that those are contending. I think it is very tender to be angry. I think it is very kind. If you aren't broken or tender about this world, and if you are broken and tender about this world, then you should feel angry. Anger creates movement forward often. And I think that that's beautiful. And maybe anger is the wrong word, but just,
I hear you.
Justice. Yeah.
Justice.
Yeah.
How do you navigate some crazy ass shit on the internet and news and things that I'm sure you're emotionally stirred by and have strong opinion on, and keep kind of the temperament and pace of what you do at the forefront? I struggle with that, because sometimes I'm like, I'm going to be positive online, and then I turn on CNN, and the next time I'm like, y'all. So I'm curious with you, like, how do you walk through this world, have strong opinions, feel things, and keep your brand and your tone and your calling? I love the word calling, like you're called to do this work. So walk me through that. I'm curious.
I think it's important to know and to remember that like the Meg in Meg's Tea Room is a character, and she lives in a very specific world, and she does a very specific thing. So she and I are the same. It's an extension of myself, but once that camera's off, I am active and raging and very interactive with the news and with my community and one-on-one. But what I see Meg's Tea Room role is to be kind of the safe place, I guess, if that makes sense. I don't know if that's the right word. But to kind of be the break in all of that, and not in a, don't look at it, but in a, you've been working so hard to save this world. So let me offer you this respite for just a second. Like, keep going. You need to keep going. We all are doing this together. But my contribution is a moment of rest, a moment of deregulation or regulation. And that's how I see my calling, is to be the breath so that you can keep going.
That's beautiful.
Does that make sense? I'm going to keep saying, does that make sense? I keep saying that over and over, but
girl, like everything you're saying, I'm like, amen, hallelujah.
And sometimes, that does mean using my voice in different ways.
Yeah.
I contend with this every day. It is me going, what's my role? How do I speak on this? How do I speak on that? And how do and you'll see me do it in more subtle ways. So for example, 2024 happened. There was election day, and I know a lot of my personal community got very nervous and very scared. And so that morning I ran to the tea room and I made a quick video, and it's my number one video that I've ever posted. And I think, and all it was just saying, like, are you okay? I know I can't fix it. I'm so sorry, but we're going to make some tea and you're okay for a minute. If so, that video I've posted a few different times and it always does very well. And I keep trying to figure out, I've done many like this before. Why is it this one? And I think it was just, again, that's my contribution.
The reason I asked that question, and I'm about to get woo AF, like
do it.
Woo. I think a lot of I feel like our divisiveness and separation comes from just our limited language. Our language is such an interesting thing where, I could say a certain, like somebody got mad at me yesterday because I used a certain word and I didn't even think anything about that word, but that word just like triggered something in them. And language is so interesting because we all have like different perceptions when we try to cognitively connect with each other. But what you're able to do, and creators like you, is y'all are able to kind of go in a layer deeper into where you don't have to necessarily cognitively wrestle with something. You can say something without saying it, and you can create an environment and a presence that facilitates something.
Yeah.
And I think it takes creators like you to surrender to God to be able, like, I trust that the work that needs to be done can be done if I create a space to allow for belonging, healing, being seen, and so forth. But I think it's what's even a level even more interesting than that is not only are you doing it, but you're doing it online, which feels like in its essence kind of like a robotic, and it is a robotic human thing.
Yeah.
But when I watch your videos, and I think the reason that you've popped and people relate so well to you is you can feel your energy through the video. You know what I mean? And that's a talent, that's a skill, and I'm sure it's something that you have developed over time.
Yeah.
So here's a deep ass technical question, but I'm curious, like, how I know Tony Robbins does, like he jumps on a trampoline or something. Different people get into different states. Do you like actively try to get into a state before you become Meg's tea room, or have you even thought about that? And I'm crazy.
No, you're not crazy at all. I feel like putting on the costume has become kind of a ritual in itself. I try to be really intentional and slow. I usually am rushing. Like, for example, after we finish up here, I've got to jet right into there. And that's the only time I know, okay, I might not have time to just, take 10 minutes and meditate or get into that headspace, but I can be very methodical about, okay, now the skirt's on. Okay, we're putting on the corset and we're zipping it in. And there's something about that. I'm usually playing some kind of tavern music that kind of gets me into the atmosphere. And more than anything, I always start going, this is a hug. This is a hug. Because I kind of try to think about my content as like, and even just what we were just talking about, I might not be speaking specifically to what's happening in a nation, but think of it as, when something horrible happens and you go to your friend, or your friend shows up for you, or a family member, and you don't have to tell them anything that happened. You're already broken. You're in it emotionally. They see you and they give you a hug and they just go, I know. That's how I view my content. And so I'm like, if I can offer that, I know, then we're good. So I always start with going, breath, this is a hug. This is the hug. And so I build it off of that. But the costume piece is very slow and thoughtful and mindful. It's that armor of God, Heather.
Armor of God. I love how I don't know if you feel this way, like even though I'm outside of that world right now, it's like it's always going to be a part of me, because I always slip in like I'm always like, amen, hallelujah, we're going to church.
Oh yeah.
What about on the storytelling side of things? Do you script everything out? Like, how do you think through the I see you nodding your head.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, everything's scripted. I have to do that. I have a background as a copywriter, so I write. I wrote for a living for years as well, on top of the church piece. But I usually am going through, for example, my comments. And if I start to see a trend in my comments, or a bunch of people saying one specific thing, then I know, that's very generous that people offer their stories and what they're going through in my comments all the time. So I try to, again, meet that with a video that will resonate, with that feeling or whatever I see. I'm building scripts off of conversations with my friends all the time. I say, inevitably, if a friend of mine comes and, has a discussion with me about something they're going through, it will end up in a script at some point. And they know that. Yeah. Or, what I just talked about in therapy, if I got something, out of therapy that was a really good thought, or a really good lesson in any sense, that without a doubt will end up in a script in some form. Yeah. I just have an ongoing notes app that I just write everything down, and then I pull from that.
What's something you've shaved off of your scripts or your storytelling that you once thought was important that you don't think is important?
Oh, great question.
I'm thinking about, like, I know for me, I'm always thinking about what do I need to add in. And I don't know if it's just me getting older or what, but I've been really thinking a lot more like, Heather, what do you need to take out? You know what I mean? Like, what do you need to shave off your life, your content, whatever. So storytelling wise, is there something you used to feel like you needed to do or had to do and it's not necessary?
I always, at the beginning, when I was doing the Meg's Tea Room style content, I started doing a lot of intros. I felt like it needed to be a, hi, how are you? Welcome in. What can I get you? Things like that. And if you'll notice, my content has shifted now to where I get right to it. And so I enter the screen and I go, so you're feeling this way. And there's an element of that could be construed as strategy, because you want to catch quote someone in the first 3 seconds, or however they do it, which of course is a thought, is like, how do, you want your content creator, this is your job. You want people to stick around. But on the other end, I know it, like, if I'm just saying, hi, how are you? They're not necessarily connecting right away. It's not something that someone hears and is getting impacted. And I'm like, how quickly can I impact? Just because they might have 15 seconds. And I want to honor their time. And also I want to get the message to them as quick as I can. Because if that's all they got and then they swipe, at least they'll have someone today will tell them that they are worth something. So I cut out a lot of the fat at the beginning and go straight in. I still do it every now and then, because it does mean a lot to have someone just say, like, how are you doing? And just sit and quietly listen in silence. But yeah, I try to get right to the point, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
I think what's interesting about your style of content is we're told as creators that in order to be on social media, that you kind of have to, what's the word? You're always just kind of like trying to grab attention and hijack attention. It's like this, like,
Exactly.
I mean, like, happen every 3 seconds.
You only have so much time.
And then, like, I think creators like you are proving it wrong. That if you have substance and you have connection, that you can go actually
As
at
long
a
as you want.
slower pace and
Yep.
breathe, and people freaking eat it up. It's wild.
The best video I had, the one I was referring to, half that video is me making tea silently. And it's just, you just see my hands making tea. And so again, it blew my mind. Like, why is this one resonating? But it is. It's just, I think it gets so loud in the social media space about how fast and how quick, and we only have so much time. The goal is to catch attention instead of connecting. And I think there's the only way you're really going to connect is that slowing down. It just is. And at least that's what I'm finding. And all those strategies just don't work for what I do. I've tried them and they just don't, but I appreciate that.
Target audience. Like, I don't feel like you limit your audience to who can resonate with what you're saying. So how do you think through? I know how you deliver it's very specific, but do you have like a what is it? A persona, like a target audience? Yeah, target audience.
Yeah, I had kind of a avatar in a sense when I started, because that was what I was told I was supposed to do, and it was always, I was more in the female presenting space, like women, that was who I was, and I'm for the girls. I know that. And it was, people who loved a cozy hobby, people who read fantasy stories. It started there. And now I look at my stats or my insights and it's so off of that. So I kind of throw up my hands. Like you said, your husband loves to watch, and I have so many
military dude with tattoos and like into fitness and kind of tough. Like Tiru,
It's so strange. And I noticed that. I was telling my husband that I was like, my stats went from 97% women last year to now there's 50 some percent men in there. And I don't want to analyze that too much, but I do see so many men in my comments, and it's not, I rarely get inappropriate comments from them. It's always very warm, and reflective of your husband, and so, I think men, like, I don't think they're handed, breath as much either, and so just to ask them to slow down, is a feat, I think, or it's not something that they're often asked to do. And so I think hopefully it's connecting with them in that way, and it gives them also some, a respite, I guess.
I think people are just, they're hungry for it. They're open to it. Now, I think there's, here comes the spiritual terms again, but just like an awakening happening of like something's happening collectively, where not only are we exhausted, we feel like something's off, and we're just looking for truth tellers and people who embody the spirit of God, and I think, I know for me, I've been told like men, and maybe this is growing up in the South or whatever, but men are a certain way. And I just think it's complete BS. I think men are open to healing and interested in deep things and sensitive and thoughtful for the most part. And they just need to, have a space to be able to do that freely. So it doesn't surprise me that men are drawn to your content too.
Yeah, it's interesting.
The tavern music, come on.
Yeah. There's a D&D element of that too. The D&D community is very male forward. It's changed a lot, obviously. It's evolved. But I think, the fantasy D&D or TTRPG, that whole crowd.
Are you into that? That's Dungeons and Dragons, right?
Dungeons and Dragons. Yeah. You know what's funny is I've never actually played it. I've never played it. I know a lot about it. I want to play it. We don't have a community here in Nashville. I know.
That's wild.
I've hyper fixated on it. I could tell you so much about it. But I haven't actually played it.
I know, in your spare time.
I know.
What do you do when you don't have an idea and the muse is like, sounds like he's turned away from you? Do you ever, or she? Do you ever feel like that?
Yeah, that's burnout for me. Yeah. If I feel dry, I know I need a break. Usually that means I need a rest. That to me is a cue. if I'm spent creatively, I need to create somewhere else for a minute. And maybe that's literally just coloring for a while or, focusing on just something else for a minute. And sometimes I can do that. Sometimes I can't. Sometimes again, this is my job. So I have to create. I have no choice. And that's usually when I look in my comments section. I do that often, but for when I feel creatively stuck, that's where I'm going. Just number one, to get encouragement that what I'm doing means something. Because my comment section is really generous, and they give me a lot of encouragement, which is incredibly kind. And I have to kind of be careful how much I step into my comment section. I realized that over the past year because people, that generosity just come and like sharing, their personal traumas or what they're going through.
Yeah.
And I, like you, feel a lot of things and I empathetically take on a lot. And if I'm in there too much, I can't, it's just too much for me. I have to like take a step back. But when I am creatively spent, I find a lot of encouragement there and also just ideas for what they need. What do you need to hear? Okay, great. That's where I can find it. I think that actually applies to any content creator. If you're creatively spent, going and like actually connecting with the people that you're serving is one of the quickest ways to get revived because you're focused on someone that's not yourself. It's focused on the need versus what you need. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, it's beautiful. And it's wild that we have to be reminded to do that. Like we're creating for people. And it's like, hey, are you connecting with the people? And that's sometimes the easiest thing to let go because it's the dopamine of all the other numbers, is so much more addictive.
And there's a real person. I try to remember that too. Like there is a real person that left me that comment that took time to do that. And so I try to honor that as much as I can. Again, I have to have boundaries, but just because of the nature of my content. But I do try to honor that as much as I can. I'm definitely reading them when I can.
Big ass kind of final question, and we'll start turning the corner here. But I'm curious about just guidance, thoughts around creating more, I guess, meaning in what we're trying to create and put out in the world. Everybody who listens to this show, I promise you, is like an old soul deep thinker, almost to a fault, where we overthink everything. We want things to be meaningful and thoughtful and have an impact and have a calling. A lot of people who listen are kind of come from the same backgrounds you and I do. And so I relate to what you said earlier about this is your new ministry. I've said that a few times here too. That's how I feel. So thinking through, like, how do you add spirit, heart, soul to your content when maybe you don't have a proven formula that works and you're out there like floundering, trying different ideas, but it doesn't feel like it's landing with anybody, What do you think about that part?
I think one of the greatest things I did was flounder. I think there's a lot of beauty actually in the floundering. I think the only way to figure out what really lands and where your gut like feels settled is to try a bunch of things, is to try a bunch of different styles, a bunch of different ways to connect. And I think more than anything, and this is the thing I learned even at the beginning of making content, was I was making cocktails for books. It wasn't that deep. And it wasn't also, I wasn't really a drinker. I drink, occasionally, but I wasn't someone who was passionate about making cocktails. It just seemed like a good strategic idea to connect in the book space. It just seemed like a smart plan. So at the end of the day, I wasn't really following or doing anything that deeply resonated with me. And I wasn't following any kind of, it didn't awaken my soul. So I think asking yourself if you can, and it's a privilege to be able to do work that does that. And I recognize that. So if you have the space and you can, trusting your gut, and just, if it means something to you, it's going to mean something to others. Yeah. And a lot of times we're so focused on, again, making it more of a strategy to have meaningful content and connect. and it's just never going to hit the way you want because it's not authentic.
Yeah.
So I think it needs to be meaningful, truly meaningful to you, and it needs to light you up. It needs to make you feel like you're doing something bigger, and it doesn't have to be a big thing to feel like you're doing something bigger. Does that, you know what I mean?
You're snapping, people. I'm ready listening to this, but your girl's snapping. Yes.
Yeah. I think, yeah, hopefully that resonated or connected.
I hope you write a book one day. I know you're in the publishing world, and I want to hear about that before our very, very last question. I'm like a preacher. I'm like, we have 3 more questions. No, no more.
Yeah.
Have you thought about it? Are you open to it?
I'm asked that all the time. I'm asked that all the time. Are you going to write a cozy fantasy? I don't see myself writing a novel. Although I don't know what the next 20 years of this looks like. I don't know what this looks like or where it's leading. I don't want to discount anything. Yeah. I'm not a creative writer. I am a copywriter. I wrote blogs for years, and I could see that in the future. Not right now.
Girl, I want a nonfiction, you know.
I know. I could see an essay form of something in the future, but for now, I'm just taking and soaking it all in. And I really love uplifting authors. That's what I feel like my purpose is right now. And, you know, maybe that's sowing seed for later in life. I don't know. But
I work about that, what you're doing for folks who don't know.
So I'm connected with Bindery Books, which is a traditional indie publication. And they basically work with content creators to, they give them what's sort of kind of like a bookish Patreon, where you can create a membership and you created this really lovely community that is off of the social. It's, you know, right here connected to you. And then through that, certain creators get the opportunity to create their own publishing imprint. And so I got that opportunity last year, and I have a press called Cozy Quill, and we put out cozy fantasy stories, and we're getting ready to put out our very first cozy fantasy, recipes for an unexpected afterlife by Destin J. Munden. And that comes out August 14th or October 14th. I don't know why we're 1 week away as of recording of this from the launch. And if you could see the lists right now that are all
so lit up though. The moment you started talking about it, you lit up.
I am so proud of this piece of my life, and I am so proud of this author, and he's incredible. He's an incredible human, and I couldn't think of anyone more deserving of this opportunity. It's been really, really rewarding piece of my work, and I can't believe I get to do it. It's wild. It's very hard. A lot of hard work, but yeah.
What can we do to support you in that, so we can link up your membership so folks can get behind the scenes content?
Sure, yeah.
You share a little bit of the publishing side of stuff too.
I do, yeah. I do all the publishing. You get kind of behind the scenes of that. You get a lot of access to the author. You get, you know, step by step, you get to vote on, you know, the book cover, things like that. A lot of things that you don't normally get, you know, in a publication. And I do a lot of content, live events, everything that's just extra. You get tours of the tea room, what I'm reading, things like that. It's really fun. I love it.
That'll be linked up in the show notes along with your, is Instagram your main or TikTok?
It's now become my main. Yeah, it was TikTok, but I'm enjoying Instagram way more. I connect. It's much easier to connect there.
Okay. Well, both of them will be linked up in the show notes. It meant a lot that I know you're so busy. You just mentioned this week is like launch week.
Yeah.
No need from anybody, and that you took time out of your day to speak with me about some very deep stuff.
This was my joy. This is my favorite to sink into this. I love this.
Cool. Yeah. And I just thank you for the work you're doing in the world. I could just cry when thinking about this. Like, there's just so many hurting people and so much pain, and to be able to use your gifts to give somebody hope. You know, I don't know if you'll ever really realize like the ripple effect that'll have long term on people. So thank you for I'm such a winky free word. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Very last question. I'll get you out of here so you can go create content
and cry.
What's something in your life right now that you are deeply questioning? I always ask this question at the end because I I think it's a beautiful thing to question stuff. It's beautiful to not know the answers. It's beautiful to wrestle with stuff. And sometimes it's silly things. Like I always say that, why does Taco Bell serve breakfast? That makes no sense. But it could also be like existential, like what the crap are we doing here? So
Yeah.
what's on your mind lately that you're wrestling with?
Give me a second. I gotta think about it.
Why not keep hitting you with stuff?
No, that's a great question. And I'm just trying to think of what am I questioning right now? A whole heap of stuff. But let's think. I would say, do I want to say this? Yes. I would say I don't want to cry. I would say family. I think, and is it something you're born into, or is it something you create? And is it truly blood is thicker than, quote, water? Is that true? Or is the family you create, or could it be even more impactful and more home than the blood?
Thank you so much.
Oh my gosh.
I'm looking forward to meeting you.
What a gift. Seriously. And thank you for what you do as well. Your episodes and just the way that you open and create such a safe space for guests, even to come in, and then your community to come in and ask questions and just exist and not know things and be just in this state of growth. And that's okay. And the state of not knowing, and that's okay. You just give permission. You give so much permission to people to just be. And I think that is a gift, and that is cozy. That is very cozy.